everyone and welcome back to my YouTube channel. It is Thursday the 5th of November. The video I've been working on will not be ready for tomorrow. Yeah, I've just been sitting on the sofa for like the past hour not doing anything, but I want to try and get a video up for tomorrow. So if you're seeing this, I succeeded. So this video is going to be a little bit different and like not theatre based because all of my theatre ideas that I have are either in progress at the moment or they're not things I can film and edit in less than 24 hours. So instead, I'm going to be doing the mixed girl tag. This was an idea that I did think about filming with Josh because we are both mixed race. But desperate times call for desperate measures, so I'm going to do it by myself, which I think works seeing as he's not a girl. But also, this isn't specific to being a girl either. Don't know where the gender binary is coming with this tag, but we're going to have a go at it and you can learn a little bit more about me. If you need something to do on this first day of lockdown 2, the coronavirus strikes back. When you're seeing this, it will be the second day of lockdown 2, coronavirus strikes back. So let's get to it. Question 1, what are you mixed with? I am half English, half Jamaican. That's about it. We think, which will probably come up a little bit later, we think that there might be some South Asian, like Indian in there somewhere from back in the colonial times. At some point I might do one of those ancestry DNA tests to see, because it would be quite interesting to see if there is any South Asian in there. But in terms of parental / grandparental mixes, just English and Jamaican. What ethnicity have you often been mistaken for? When I had longer hair, when I straightened it, people said I look South Asian. And there was one time this South Asian woman, I'm saying South Asian because I don't know if it was specifically India or somewhere else in that kind of subcontinent, and I don't want to like offend anyone by assuming, but this woman came up to me and started speaking to me in what I think was Tamil, or I think Tamil is a South Asian language. It sounded like a South Asian language. I don't know if it was Tamil or Urdu or something. And I was like, I'm sorry, I don't understand. And she looked really confused. And that was with me with curly hair. And I know curly hair can happen from that kind of ethnic heritage as well. Yeah, I guess that's the only thing. Other than that, I think most people kind of know I'm mixed race. People have said that I could pass for Hispanic, like Latin American, because obviously they have lots of mixes there because they were involved in the African slave trade as well. So, and I think someone said that I looked Bayesian once, like I was from Barbados, which, nah, wrong island. Is your hair curly or straight? I'm not gonna answer that. I know I will answer that. It is curly. It is not afro though. Afro is a very specific hair texture. I might as well get into this because I was kind of doing the curly girl method at the beginning of this year. I've now quit. I kind of want to do a video on that at some point. But my hair, I think, is about a 3B curl. So there's 4 different categories. So there's type 1 hair, which is basically straight, type 2, which is wavy, type 3, which is curly, and type 4, which is coily, which is like the tightest curls. And that's kind of what afro hair is. Although why afro hair has to be number 4 and straight hair has to be number 1, that's a whole debate. But using that system, I have type 3 hair, and I would say my hair is kind of 3B. Although now it's shorter, I feel like there's some distinction. Wait, let me get a pencil. So this curl here fits a pencil. So like pencil circumference is technically 3C. And I know there are some curls at the back that are like larger, so they're probably more like 3A. But when my hair was longer, it was more like 3B. So I'm very confused. But yeah, my hair is curly. Long story short. Oh, you're leaving. Bye.
I'm going to post office.
Okay, have fun. Bye.
Bye. Like and subscribe.
So this is an interesting one. Was coming from different backgrounds challenging growing up? Growing up, I would say on the surface, no. There was definitely, how can I put this? It's what happens when you don't plan. So I grew up in a really white area in Kent. Like we used to get like British National Party leaflets through our door and stuff. Like that's how white it was. I never suffered any racial prejudice, whether that's because my mum shielded it from me. I don't think that's the case though, really. And where I went to, particularly secondary school, when you start being more aware of, you know, that kind of stuff, I went to a grammar school. So grammar schools, you have to pass this test called the 11 plus. So it tends to be very academically bright students that end up going there. Grammar schools, there's a whole debate about whether grammar schools are good or bad. Maybe that could be a video if, you know, I really want to stray away from theatre content. And so because, you know, there were a lot of intelligent girls and intelligent teachers there, obviously there was no one who was outrightly racist, because like back in the 2000s, people just weren't like that. We still thought fascism was bad. So I never had an issue that way. And for me, it's kind of like the Jamaican part of my heritage was a lot to do with family. I wasn't really around my own culture that much unless I was with family, like going to visit my aunties and cousins at Christmas, big birthdays. That's when that was really around. And even now, it's like eating Jamaican food is like comfort food for me. Like, that's just how it is. But I think as I've got older, kind of only experiencing half of my culture in family settings is kind of something that I've had to kind of reckon with and figure out for myself to feel more connected to that part of me, especially because in media, especially in the 90s, noughties, even into the 2010s when I was at uni, the media still has a very set way of portraying Black people. It's a stereotype that I've never really fit into, and I think that stopped. Like, if I was into the things that in media Black people are supposed to be into, like if I was into hip hop and R&B, if I spoke in a certain way, if I was interested in, you know, certain things, I wouldn't have felt as disconnected from that side of me for so long. Long story short, growing up, no, I was kind of oblivious to stuff. As I've got older and I've become more aware of just life, there's been some work that I've kind of had to do. But it's all good, it's fine. I'm not completely psychologically damaged. Not by that anyway. Number 5, which backgrounds do you embrace the most? I don't think there's a background that I embrace more or less. I mean, I've grown up in a UK culture. I haven't grown up in Jamaican culture. So in that regard, I guess you could say that I embrace a UK British culture more. But for me, what British culture is multicultural because of the history of colonialism and, you know, the breadth of different nationalities and cultures that are here. That's the British culture that I see. And, you know, there are some things about British culture that I really am not into, like I don't know, I guess aspects of Jamaican culture. I'm specifically thinking of food here. Like me having jerk chicken and rice and peas. Maybe it's also because I don't know how to cook those things, but like when I have those, whether it's like my family has cooked it or I get it as takeaway, I'm like, yeah, it has like an emotional effect on me. And this sounds really, really like deep. It's not that deep, but you know what I mean? Like, I'm like, oh, this feels so good. And you know, it has all those connotations. Whereas me having, I guess the equivalent would be like a roast. Like, I enjoy a good roast, don't get me wrong, but it just doesn't hit in the same way. 6, have you ever been teased for being different? The one time I remember was in infant school. Maybe I was in year 1, so I would have been like 5 or 6. And we were playing in the playground, obviously. And there were these 2 boys, I can't even remember their names now. And there was like a day or 2 days when they would call me Auntie Blackie, but I would never, I wasn't offended because I was just like, well, my skin is darker than theirs. I just, you know, kids don't know things are offensive, right? They have to learn that things are offensive. They just call it how they see it, even though, you know, I'm not Black. So obviously, thinking about it as an adult, those boys have clearly made an association of darker skin being Black. Maybe there's some kind of auntie thing going on because a lot of non-white cultures uses the term auntie and uncle. Definitely did that growing up. Like, anyone older than you was just auntie or uncle, regardless of whether they were actually related to you. Like, it's a thing. So maybe that has something to do with it as well. I don't know. But me as a 5-year-old, I was just like, yeah, it's cool. And then they stopped doing it, and like, they didn't say it with any malice, so I didn't feel like sad about it. I didn't feel like they were being mean because they didn't say it in a mean way. So apart from that, not really tease. Like, when you've got curly hair, everyone just pulls your hair because they're just like, ooh, it's like a spring. And it's like, yeah, can you please not touch my hair unless I ask you to, please? Like, what is this? Do you own my hair? No, then keep your hands off. Have you ever been ashamed of being multiracial? No. I've not been ashamed. There have been times, especially growing up in my formative years, because there's such, especially when I was growing up, beauty was pretty much synonymous with whiteness. Now it's different. You see so many different skin colors and different ethnicities in beauty campaigns. It's great. But when I was like a teenager, I remember, don't ask me why, but I remember wanting to be Irish. I wasn't ashamed. Maybe that did come from shame and I just didn't realize it at the time. But like, I really wanted to be Irish and have like pale skin, dark hair and green eyes, because I just thought that was so beautiful. Didn't help that I was kind of like an emo goth scene kid. So like, there wasn't a lot of black and mixed race representation in that group, so that probably didn't help. I don't think I was ashamed of it as in like I didn't want people to know that I was like half Jamaican. When everyone would ask me, I'd be like, oh yeah, I'm half Jamaican and like half English. So it wasn't shame in that way. I think that was more just how I saw myself and more of low self-esteem on my side rather than it coming from being ashamed of my heritage, if that makes sense. Do you feel that being mixed race has its benefits? Yeah. I mean, on the one hand, if we're getting into like critical race theory, systemic oppression kind of thing, me being lighter skinned gives me more opportunities than if I had darker skin. That's just the way that works. That's colorism in action. But that's a privilege that I have, and it's something that I've got to be aware of and I've got to own if I'm going to help make the world a better place for everyone. Like, I can't ignore that fact, you know what I mean? Also, there's the kind of exoticization, I guess, of mixed race people. That's not just me being of black heritage, mixed race. I just think in general, I don't know if it's like an advantage or not, because there are negatives to that as well. A lot of the time when you see diversity in beauty campaigns, again, like it's better than it used to be, so like this isn't a complaint per se, but like a lot of the time you do see that people are mixed when they're not white but they're in these beauty campaigns, and there's just kind of a bias towards people being of mixed race being inherently kind of beautiful, and people being like, oh, if you had mixed race babies they'd look so cute. Like, you hear that all the time. And like, yeah, it's weird. It's weird when you break it down. I mean, I guess there's an advantage in that I've never grown up feeling how different I am. When I was like in my formative years, I never thought of myself, oh, I look so different. And I wonder if that would have been different if my skin were darker, or if that's, you know, I just happened to grow up somewhere where my differences weren't pointed out because people weren't seeing me that way. I don't know, but I do think having features where people are like, oh, your hair is so beautiful, oh, your skin color is so nice, you take that on board. And if I was much darker, I don't know if that would be the case. I have no idea if this is going in, because this is like very like, I'm just trying to be truthful about it. It shouldn't be that way, absolutely, but you know, I can't deny the fact that I've read articles by people who were darker than me saying that their skin was called mud coloured, and they, like, everyone said how disgusting their hair was, and I never had that experience. And I think that's because the differences that mixed race people have are more accepted by the white society that we live in. I honestly think that's the case. So it sucks that that's the world we live in, and I wish we didn't live in that kind of world. And the only thing I guess I can do about it is try and use what privilege I have as someone who's mixed race to help make a world where everyone is seen and appreciated and treated with equality and with equity as well. This got deep. Number 9, what makes being multiracial a beautiful thing? I think that kind of not fitting into a box, I think in a way that can be difficult, especially when you're younger and you're still growing and maturing and finding out who you are. There's comfort in boxes, and your ethnicity and your racial identity can definitely fall into that. I think especially when you're from an oppressed minority, an oppressed racial group, you know, there is solidarity in being like, I am this thing, like Black pride, Black power. There is security and a feeling of power and ownership in an identity. But I also think it is beautiful, I guess you could describe it that way, when you're mixed race. And I don't think you just have to be mixed race to feel this, but like you're more aware of the fact that you don't fit into a box. Like, I'm not white, I can identify as Black, but I don't have two Black parents, you know. And I think having an awareness of that, once you're sure of yourself and you're confident in yourself and who you are, it makes you more ready and willing to be like, let's be my own person. I don't have to conform to these boxes, because you and yourself are not in a box. Most people, when they think of mixed race, think Black, white mixed race. But there are so many different ethnicities and different cultures and different racial identities that mixed race can literally be anything. And in any proportions, it doesn't have to just be 2, it can be 3 or 4 or 5. Like, there's so many different possibilities. And I think that as a person makes you think, well, what's the point of these boxes anyway? Like, why can't I just be me? Why can't I just be my own person? Which I think is really beautiful. And I think that's how it should be. We should all be able to be like, can't I just be me? You know. Question 10. Any advice to someone who struggles with their multiracial identity? I would say particularly if one of your racial identities is like the dominant racial identity in the culture that you're in, the stereotypes that dominant culture portrays of your other racial identity, you don't have to conform to those stereotypes to be that side of you and to be proud of that side of you and to be fully connected to that side of you. I don't have to fit the stereotypes of being a Jamaican person to be someone of Jamaican heritage and to be proud of that. I guess to people who are just in general struggling, yeah, I guess don't feel pressure that you have to be a certain way to identify with any part of your cultural identity. Culture is nuanced and it's diverse and it's complicated, and there are so many different types of people within a culture. No one looks at white culture and says all white people are this one kind of thing. So whatever your multiracial or multicultural identity is, there's nuance within that. So I guess find your own way to embrace all parts of your multiracial identity. Don't feel pressure to have to go through that journey in a certain way. And yeah, whatever your multiracial identity is beautiful and it's amazing, and there is so much richness in you and in how you identify that, you know, no one else will have, because not only is there only a certain amount of people who'll have your exact racial identity, if there is someone else who has your exact racial identity, but no one else can be you with that identity either. So embrace that, be loving and be kind to yourself, and enjoy the discovery, I guess, of how you relate with your cultures. Yeah, I guess that's it. I have no idea if that's helpful, but that's what I'd say. Not to call this out, but the blog where I got these questions from, for question 9, what makes being multiracial a beautiful thing? Being able to look different and having people say, what are you? Not discouraging that person's thoughts and feelings, like they're valid, but like that's what I hate about being mixed race, is when people are like, where are you from? And you're like, oh, I'm from this place. Yeah, but where are you from? And it's like, does it matter? Are you trying to cast me as being from a certain area? No, so then you don't need to know. Do you know what I mean? And also, bringing it back to theatre, ooh, sneaky, it does put you in a moral quandary where you're like, so for example, if I can look like I'm from kind of Hispanic South America, it's like, great, but I'm not. So it's like, where does that line get drawn? Being mixed race, you tend to be slightly more culturally ambiguous or ethnically ambiguous, which can be useful, but then it's also like, you don't want to cross the line. So yeah, that's another thing. But yes, that was the mixed race tag. I hope you enjoyed this video. Whether this makes it onto the internet, I have no fucking clue, because at this point I'd kind of given up getting a video up this week. And yeah, I hope this gives you something fun to distract you from lockdown. In all seriousness, speaking of lockdown, yeah, it's gonna be a rough month probably for people going back into lockdown. I know there are some people who never really came out of lockdown because they didn't feel safe and they were shielding, or you know, there were other reasons why they couldn't like go back to normal. Let's all eat out to help out. But whatever your situation, I hope that you can look after yourself, make sure that you eat, make sure that you go outside. I should probably take this advice as well. If you want something to distract you, show of the week is Legally Blonde the musical. It's heartwarming, it's fun and feel good. And I will link the cast recording, but also the pro shot, which is on YouTube. I'll link both of those down below if you want to watch them. Really would recommend. I know it probably sounds like it's dumb, but it's actually a really good musical. Like, as someone who doesn't like frivolous cheese in their musical theatre, I like my musical theatre with some depth, like the Mariana Trench. I really enjoy Legally Blonde, so I'll link it down below if you want something else to distract yourself in these hard times. If you enjoyed this video, please consider liking and subscribing. Would love to have you on the channel. Stay tuned for more theatre content. It will be theatre related next time from a UK perspective, and I will see you all in my next video. Bye friends!